Now, I think it's pretty safe to say that the future of the Star Wars universe seems to be quite expansive, not just with their books, novels, comics, and video games, but also let's not forget about their new Star Wars TV shows, the new Star Wars films in the works by, of course, Bob Chapek, George Lucas, Jon Favreau, and Dave Filoni, really putting everything together for this new EU that is going to borrow a lot of aspects from Star Wars Legends and really mixing it in with the new. There's a lot at play here for Lucasfilm and Disney on really bringing Star Wars back on track. And what they really need to do, ultimately, is that they have to have a lot of successful Star Wars projects consistently to really create that momentum, to really build up the hype of the Star Wars fandom, and to really gain their trust that things really actually are moving in a better direction. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel for future Star Wars updates. Also, by the way, guys, I am on Twitter at Mike01 if you guys want to go ahead and give me a follow on there. I do post a couple of entertaining things on there from time to time and really make sure to interact with you guys further. So we're now in a very interesting phase of Star Wars. We are days away from the release of the Book of Boba Fett on the 29th. That's really going to tie directly into the Mandalorian Season 3 eventually. But it's also going to fill in the dots in between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, as well as showing us in live action exactly how Boba Fett survived the Sarlacc pit. We're going to be learning all about that in the Boba Fett series. Now, moving on beyond this, we already know that Disney is working on a handful of Star Wars TV shows, a lot of which have yet to be announced, that will be announced at Star Wars Celebration. And Star Wars Celebration, by the way, is still on track for May of 2022. Cross your fingers that it does not get delayed and or canceled. Hopefully not. But regardless, they will be unveiling the new phase of Star Wars TV shows and films sometime in the middle of 2022 if Celebration does end up getting canceled. So beyond all of this, we also know that John and Dave are working around the clock to really kind of give everything to the fans. So now that both Disney and Lucasfilm are focused on their new Star Wars projects like Star Wars Ahsoka and Kenobi, both Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni have been working around the clock to steer the franchise in the right direction for the fans. However, recently Bob Chapek has been doing some pretty big things over at Disney and handing them down to Lucasfilm to handle. One major project is set to be the Rise of Skywalker 4-hour cut that is set to include a fully redone version of the sequel trilogy ending that involves both Palpatine, Ben Solo, and even Rey, plus the addition of Matt Smith's character. This is all planned to drop by sometime during holiday of 2023, and that Lucasfilm is creating a detailed strategy on how they can actually make this canon as an ending to the sequels by filling in the blanks. Now further, it's described that they already have things set for Matt Smith to finally portray his role as the host of Palpatine's Sith spirit. This plan is going to also be handled by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni to take part in, along with other creators lending their hands to the Rise of Skywalker 4-hour cut for Disney+. Now, the scene is set to involve a full-on lightsaber duel between Ben Solo, Rey, and the older version of Palpatine, using a red-bladed lightsaber just as he did in Episode 3. However, this duel is set to also involve a remixed version of the Duel of the Fates track from The Phantom Menace as originally intended for the movie before the track got cut by Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams, as they eventually felt the music served no purpose if Rey and Palpatine would not engage in a saber duel. So, let me just pause right here, because I don't know if you guys knew this, but there was a remixed version of Duel of the Fates that was all created and done by John Williams himself that was going to be a big part of Episode 9. And unfortunately, they didn't really get to use it in the film that we saw, but they did get to use it partially, at least, in one of the TV spots for Episode 9. You guys may recall, I believe it was right around Thanksgiving of 2019 is when we got to see that. And it was a very interesting track. They were going to use it, they ended up not using it because both Kathleen and JJ had agreed that it would just make no sense, because they really wanted to use this for a saber duel sequence. Now, given that they did have a lot of extra Palpatine footage, even Ian McDiarmid himself admitted that there is so much Palpatine footage left over that he believes that they could make a movie out of it. And when we look at everything related to that, it really makes you wonder, why in the world did they not use a lot of this stuff originally speaking? Now, the new ending that is planned is set to use Matt Smith as a true host body for Palpatine's spirit, and that Lucasfilm is planning to make it out to be that it is the secret perfected clone of Palpatine that is set to be an accurate representation of a young version of Sidious. Lucasfilm's plan is to make all of this happen in that some of this will happen while the Resistance is fighting the Sith Empire above. So, alright, that's a little smart as to how they're trying to go about doing this. It's basically like they're going to be treating like some of this happened off-screen in the movie that we already have, either on, Blu-ray or on the Disney Plus platform, the one that exists, essentially. They're making it like a lot of this is happening off-screen, and they're going to somehow create the strategy to fill in the blanks in a very detailed way. And I could see that as being very tough and scrambled. It all depends on how they're going to be remixing certain scenes and changing certain elements that are already in the actual feature film. But I digress. What's really interesting about this further is that the new ending that is planned is set to use Matt Smith, of course, further. And Lucasfilm's plan is to make all this happen, and that some of that will happen while the Resistance is fighting the Sith Empire even more so. They are going to be treating this like it happened off-screen, and of course, will now finally be, of course, able to use this as what's happening adjacent to the Battle of Exegol. The battle is set to involve Ben Solo using his grandfather's lightsaber, Anakin Skywalker, that once also belonged to Luke, while Rey is set to use Leia's saber, that eventually is pulled away by Matt Smith's character. Rey is set to use her yellow blade in the scene as a backup before Ben Solo finally is set to take back Leia's saber, where of course they use the two against the Dark Acolyte. A callback to Anakin fighting Dooku on Geonosis. Eventually, the scene involves Ben Solo defeating Matt Smith's host body, where Palpatine's spirit escapes and travels back into the old body and strikes down Kylo, into the pit in a similar fashion. This is where now Rey secretly grabs Leia's saber again, while her yellow one is dislodged elsewhere. Here is when Lucasfilm plans to use the actual ending when Sidious uses Force Lightning against Rey, and they are trying to figure out a way to involve Ben Solo to aid Rey against Palpatine using the Force Lightning against her. That to me is the true ending. Now, it is better. Could it be obviously a lot better than it is? It could, but this is the best that they're going to be able to do. They're using existing footage, but the new footage that they plan on reshooting with is the Matt Smith sequences. They want to get Matt Smith on board to do what he was originally supposed to do, and how he was a big role in the script of Episode 9. Now, obviously, when you look at everything related to Episode 9 as a film, a lot of people were very not so satisfied over that movie. I mean, a lot of people walked out scratching their heads, thinking to themselves, why did they call it The Rise of Skywalker if it really had nothing to do with the Skywalkers at heart? It was all about Rey calling herself a Skywalker, essentially. Now, you could look at it like this way, right? The Rise of Skywalker is about Ben Solo climbing out of the pit. That's at least how I always saw it, that's how I tried to make myself see it, at least, to kind of filter out that whole Rey concept. So now, I think that what's so great is that they're creating this team-up between Rey and Ben in a literal sense against Palpatine. The team-up that we got in the movie that we have already is very lackluster, to tell you guys the truth. It really does not have any energy. The only thing that they really do is they raise their sabers and they get pushed before Palpatine rejuvenates using their energy. That's their battle. And it was very, very boring, to say the least, in my opinion, just having Palpatine fling them backwards and dragging them back toward him before their Force Bond is unveiled, their dyad is unveiled to Palpatine, where he then uses that, takes advantage of them. So overall, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know about all of this in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.